Governor Wildstar, is it okay if I join you for a second?
Please do. Have a seat.
Good to meet you, sir.
Good to meet you, and thank you for sitting down.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Hanging out with me.
Oh, yeah. Well, you're joining us here live. We're interviewing Libertarian / Republican, we'll get to that in a second, candidate for governor, Nicholas Wildstar, and just an easy listening session right here. We're going to cover some of the elections, what it means to Californians, and what that could possibly mean for the future of this place going forward. The elections are still unrolling right now, so we're not taking a definitive conclusion, but we wanted to talk to somebody who's in the game, is meeting people, and follows politics on where you think things are going. And particularly, what I was fascinated by was there's a lot of results coming out of this elections that are not about just the top two presidential candidates. We're able to make some initial conclusions, but I don't hear anybody talking about it. They want to go for the big show. There's other aspects to cover, so we'll cover that in a second.
Absolutely.
First, I got to take a...
Please do. Imbibe as you please.
That smooth marijuana flavor you just can't get enough of. Coming at you straight from Cali.
I love the impersonation. I won't do that, but please, by all means.
Well, it's the 1950s. I'm sorry. He agreed I could do a Walter Cronkite moment, okay? So, it's not a cigarette. That's California legal.
Yes.
But
hemp, actually.
Hemp, yes. Yes, not cannabis.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
It's still cannabis, not marijuana. Cannabis has two different plants, so hemp and marijuana. So this is hemp.
Okay.
Smells like it, but not as potent,
Well, now you got the first one. That was the first tough question you already had.
All right, good to know.
So let's go right into it.
Excuse me.
You were saying a couple things about the Libertarian Party and Libertarian politics. One of the things that I've noticed with the newspapers today was saying 2/3 of Californians voted for Biden and really repudiated or voted against Trump. They were disgusted by his values. But an interesting subline has been that it wasn't all progressive voting for Californians. In fact, many of the ballot initiatives were from an anti-tax, pro-business climate.
Absolutely.
And so I've seen very little coverage about what's going on here. I thought California is all super lefty liberals. Why are lefty liberals standing for California values, but doing something they used to see the Republican Party do, standing for low taxes and low regulation? Thoughts, opinions? Have you noticed this? And can you explain to the people what's going on?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing is that they took the people of California and underestimated them in their position on conservative issues, like what you brought up, more tax increases, and nobody wants to be taxed, period. Whether you're part of the working class, whether you're rich, or one of those people that are working paycheck to paycheck, struggling to get by. Nobody likes taxes, and the people of California, unanimously in some positions, pretty much shot down all of the bond measures and tax increases that were proposed on the ballot. We also voted overwhelmingly to restore the voting rights of felons in the state, which you wouldn't think would be a position that a liberal state such as California would be against. But they voted for it in support of it, and that definitely took an effort on the conservatives, or on the conservative side as well, because no ballot would definitely pass if it didn't have support from both the right and left. And also we had the people of California stand up for independent contractors and people having the right to work. So they passed Prop 22, which allows rideshare drivers for companies like Uber and Lyft and DoorDash, etc., be able to continue to work for themselves as independent contractors, which actually creates now a loophole for them from AB 5, which is a bill that prevents people from working as an independent contractor in the state. So that says a lot about the California values and principles and ideas that we want and are demanding from our representatives. But they definitely underestimated the people in California, and with them seeing now that they're gravitating towards supporting libertarian policies, that to me feels like the right atmosphere and climate for me to step in as a libertarian Republican and offer what I'd like to do for the state as governor.
That was one of the things that grabbed me, was that I'd been talking to you for a few months, and you had epitomized this early on, in my opinion. Others may have different opinions, but what I saw was somebody who was pro-BLM, anti-Trump, but very much dedicated to preserving CA values, but also intolerant of high taxes and high regulation, and willing to speak up for the middle class and small business owners, and saying,
Absolutely.
this is not fair. And so I saw a very pro-business, pro-working family, still protect progressive values candidate. And you yourself said, if I may put this out there, sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it feels like I'm the only one. Sometimes I go to some of these Libertarian Republican meetings and they're like, you're what and what?
Right.
So, I mean, could you talk a little bit about that? Is that a unique stance before this election? Because I think it's about to explode now that we've seen, it seems like Californians are also feeling the way you were.
Yeah.
So was it a unique stance before this election?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I read the room and I kind of felt the temperature, so to speak, from speaking with voters themselves. Being on the campaign trail, I've had the honor to meet hundreds of, if not thousands of people face to face and speak with them and see what it is that they truly want out of their government. And just kind of seeing the trend and that demand starting to grow. At times it did feel like I was the only one in the room. Sometimes it still feels that way. But just knowing that what I'm being said, or what I am saying, is also being echoed by the populace, definitely lets me know that I have that support base there. It's just all a matter of connecting with them and letting them know that I exist and that I'm offering to be a representative for them. That's where the media comes into play to pretty much silence me as a candidate. I felt like that's what they did. In a second. Yeah. They definitely, use their powers to make sure that they are keeping the public from knowing all of the options that they're going to have on the ballot.
I want to ask you an awkward... Do you care if I finish this?
Oh, no, not at all. Please, go ahead.
While I'm lining this up, California legal, I want to ask you a question that might get you into a lot of trouble. You don't have to answer it, and you can answer it however you want. It'll be shared, unedited. If we have California voters today saying, I like low taxes, low regulation, pro-business climate, and protection of California values, and that seems to be the way the majority of Californians feel, why the hell didn't anyone pick up on this before? Why were you alone? Why were you different? How come you weren't one of a bunch of new class of people? I mean, why are you picking up on this? Nobody else is, in the Libertarians or the Republicans, it seems to me. And then it seems to be where Californians are. How do major parties miss where the actual voting base is? And why did you pick up on it and they didn't? In your words.
Well, in my opinion, they're still out of touch with the demands and needs of the people that they claim to want to represent. Mainly because they're still focused on what they're assuming that the public knows versus actually speaking with them and trying to find out for themselves. I've been lucky enough to be involved in those circles due to my political activism, and whether it's a Black Lives Matter protest for a police shooting, or a women's rights issue, or going out and helping the homeless community, just speaking with them and having that interaction, you're able to gauge, again, what the growing concerns are and demands are for the people in the state. And although these political parties would like to still represent them, whether it be the Libertarian Party or the Republican Party or even the Democratic Party for that matter, they're still assuming and acting as if they know what's best for the constituency versus actually speaking with the constituents themselves and finding out from them firsthand. I feel like that's where I've had the upper hand as a candidate, because you even have candidates that take, the grassroots effort and going door to door and being the boots on the ground. They take that effort for granted as well. So they don't do it at all. They just hope that they can buy their way into an election. You have major candidates out there collecting tens of thousands, if not millions of dollars in campaign donations, thinking they can just buy an election. And what history has proven to us is no matter if you win or not, if you spend that amount of money, especially if you lose, it's a wasted effort. So all of the money in the world isn't going to get you into office. It has to be where you stand on policies and what if you're a principled individual.
So what I think I hear you saying is the reason that you were taking the stance that you did months ago, and it was very lonely, but then we're seeing evidence today, these couple days, that it matches the way the majority of California voters is that you were actually out there meeting the voters.
Right.
And perhaps the leadership of the other parties were not.
Exactly.
And so they came to different ground truths than perhaps you espoused.
Absolutely. That's
Okay.
exactly what it is unfortunately, you still have politics within these political parties. You have a hierarchy, you have the chair and the executives who want to dictate how members can be involved with the party itself. I experienced that from my time being involved in the Libertarian Party, which is why I'm running as a Republican now, but I'm not seeking a Republican Party nomination.
Right.
So if I can prove to the Republican Party and the GOP that I have the people behind me, that should be all that they need to then support me and my efforts. So that's why I'm hoping that people show up March 8th in 2022, if not sooner, if this recall election is successful, but show up and vote for me and give me the opportunity to actually compete. And maybe the general election if I get a chance to, or if not, overwhelmingly vote me in as governor.
I want to get to that, but I wanted to hit on something else you said, but I need to make a quick mention, and you tell me if I'm getting this correct. So you are a Libertarian, you stand for California values, but you're running as a Republican. And the thing that you explained to me was that they rigged the system against us. So you used to have the Green Party. I've been talking with Michael Feinstein. You used to have the Libertarian Party. They were much larger. And then a few years ago, the Democrats and Republicans got together and changed the law where it basically made it impossible for third parties to exist.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that? Is that what you're saying? Is like, hey, I would have ran as a Libertarian, but you rigged the system so I don't even get to do that. Now the only option is Republican or Democrat. That's a fair summary?
Absolutely. I mean, with the top two system that they've created, the law that you're talking about, it alienated every other person in the state that wanted to have a different option other than Republican or Democrat. So now, because of it here in the state of California, whether it's two Republicans or two Democrats that get the majority in the primary, those are the only two options that we get to choose from as voters in the general election. So opposed to before, like you said, in the general election, whether it been a Republican, Democrat, Green Party, or Libertarian candidate, if they got nominated by their party, then they then would be represented on the November election ballot. So the two, came together and in cahoots with each other, chose to, again, discriminate against these other parties who could actually put them out of office had more people had an opportunity to hear what they had to say. So it's extremely discriminatory, and unfortunately it's an uphill battle because in order to change that law, we'd still be asking the same legislative body that supported it to change it. So that's what makes it difficult. But with me running as a Libertarian Republican, it does give me the opportunity to use that larger playing field to not only be heard by a greater audience, but to also be taken seriously. Unfortunately, a lot of people feel as if um, libertarians don't have a chance, so they either won't vote for them, or on the media side, they'll just ignore them completely because they assume that, again, they don't have a shot. But in the last election in 2018, when I ran against Gavin Newsom, I gathered about 12,000 votes, and that was with the minimal attention that I was able to receive from the mainstream, machine. But now, with me running as a Republican, hopefully that opens some doors for me to be heard from some conservative outlets, as well as some of those liberal ones as well, since they like to pit the two against each other. They only talk about the Republican and the Democrat and them opposing each other. So it's more so feeding into the fears and opposition to promote people to vote in a retaliatory way. If they're a staunch Democrat or a staunch Republican, then they're only going to see their opposition.
Right.
So to level the playing field, I am again stepping up as a Republican, but I'm proposing the same libertarian ideals that I did during my 2018 campaign for governor.
They rigged the game, so you have to play the game the way they allow you to play it.
Yeah.
And that's your only option if you want to play it all.
Yeah, even Kamala Harris, when she got elected as senator, she was running against another Democrat, Nancy Pelosi. This year, she was up for re-election for Senate seat, and she was up against another Democrat. So the Democrats have it on lock because they know in the state of California that they'll continue to be able to stay in power, even if, of course, they have to run against themselves, essentially. But the Republicans are having a difficult time penetrating through that themselves. So that's why I'm encouraging all of those Republicans out there to support me, because with what I'm offering to do as a libertarian Republican, all of my proposals are to bridge that gap, is to make both the people on the right and the left happy. So if these are policies that are going to be supported by the majority of people in the state, then why not make me your candidate of choice?
Right. Okay. If your permission, I'd like to return to something you said I found quite intriguing.
All right.
One of the other observations of this election that's not being talked about a whole lot was that money wasn't everything, and politics seemed to count. You made 2 points about money was the loser, and also and I think you were pointing out an example of what you call the red hatters.
Yeah.
African American red hat politicians.
Yes.
Could you, in the way you explained it to me, could you tell them what you noticed and what that means for politics now, and how that changes the conclusion that some of the experts felt it was always this way?
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, the Republican National Convention, where Trump introduced his platinum plan to essentially provide over $500 billion of influx investment into the Black community, he invited the 27 candidates that were seeking to become members of Congress throughout the country. And this included Kim Klacik. I believe she was running for Baltimore.
Yes.
In Baltimore, she had a viral video on YouTube.
A good commercial, whether you liked her or not. Good.
Yeah.
That was a solid commercial.
Indeed, it was. And it pointed out a lot of, those issues that the Black community, of course, would like to have remedied in some way.
Right.
Same thing with Joe Collins. He was a Republican candidate running against Maxine Waters in Los Angeles. And both of these candidates, along with, like I said, 25 others, were invited to the Republican National Convention, all Black Republicans, but the red hats. They're supporters of Trump and what he represents as a Republican. And 25 of them lost. Only 2 were able to succeed. So that goes to show you that the millions of dollars that were put into all of those candidates' campaigns pretty much was for all for naught. And it's not an investment that we should be willing to make as a community. That's how you know that the donators, the people that donated the money, the financiers,
Yeah.
they were special interest groups, because they had a vested interest in if those candidates were to succeed versus the people of California, the people of those neighborhoods, etc. They're focused more so on the merits of the person and the values that they represent. And again, if you're taking that for granted, it doesn't matter how much money you spend, you're going to lose. And I definitely don't, which is why I tell people it doesn't take $1 million for me to win an election. It takes 1 million votes. That's it. And I can get 1 million votes off of, a dime if you give me the opportunity to. Because if you know where to spend it, how to invest it, and make it stretch, then you can make it count. And if it's just making sure that the people of California and those that have an opportunity to vote for you actually know you exist, are familiar with you as a candidate, get a bit of name recognition, that's all it takes. Unfortunately, it's still a popularity contest. And the more I become popular as a candidate, the greater of a threat I will be to the establishment, because that just means I'm even closer to winning. And I won't need all of their money to do so.
We'll get to you being a threat to the system in a second. But I needed to ask two things that I observed that I think relate to what you're talking about. You tell me if that's how you see it too.
Okay.
Andrew Jans recently ran for election here a couple of years ago, and he ran on I think it was Devin Nunes bad, Trump bad, Russia bad,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of airtime, and he completely got spanked.
Yep, lost. Same thing in the mayoral race.
Okay, so that's another example of money, donations, fame, and what do you stand on? Well, whatever my donors are telling me to say
Exactly.
doesn't necessarily grab votes to win.
Right.
The other example is, I'd like to ask your opinion on, is Joe Biden's campaign received a lot of money, and it appears he's barely going to beat Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
So, all this cash
along.
and all the media saying Trump's horrible, and all the celebrities going for Biden. I mean, Biden had all the celebrities, all the media, all the money, and he's barely going to win.
Yeah.
Which, you add those up, and it seems to say, because I saw an interview with, it was 3 African American women on MSNBC, and they go, "You're voting for Biden," and they go, "I don't know." What do you mean you don't
Right.
know?
It's just an automatic assumption because
and
of their skin color.
That's literally what they said. It's on MSNBC. They got 3 young girls out there, and I'm sure they expected them to just say what they were on TV. And they said, "Are you voting for Biden?" "Well, I don't know. I want to, see what's up." They go, "Well, hold on now. You realize his running mate's Kamala Harris?" And they go, "And?"
Exactly.
What
does that mean?
And I think one of them said she had things she had to make right, and she didn't do that.
That's a good answer.
That's
somebody that paid attention to their record. Unfortunately, lots of people didn't do that, which is why he's in the lead right now. But I feel like that's why he's also not the president yet. Is because you did have people that paid attention to it, and they weren't fully invested into giving him their support, which is why they either stayed on the fence with their decision, or they chose to vote for Trump, or one of the other candidates that were running, Kanye West, even, who gathered, I believe, about 60,000 votes nationwide. So that's a good chunk of people that wanted to see him be president, opposed to the 2 candidates that they propped up in these debates and told us these are the only choices that you're going to have, which is a complete lie, of course, because, again, you had Kanye West, of all people, on ballots throughout the country, and the Libertarian candidate, Jo Jorgensen, who was on the ballot across all 50 states. Yeah, she did very well. Not as well as, of course, the party had hoped. They were hoping she'd get at least 5%, so she could qualify for any future Libertarian presidential candidate could qualify for public funding.
Sure.
That's mainly why. They want to make sure that they have assistance there with campaign donations. So, and also to be included in future debates as well. So if you qualify over 5%, then I guess those are the benefits. But yeah, all of the money that was spent on the Biden campaign, all of the promotions that they put out there on YouTube and Facebook, and all the viral videos was all for naught.
Yeah.
So it's we're starting to see the trend that, again, people are starting to pay more attention to what's going on with their political representatives and what they're offering to do. And Andrew Jans is a perfect example of it. You would think with all of the support that he had received in his run against Devin Nunes when he ran for mayor of Fresno, he still lost.
Yeah.
And all of that steam just petered out at the end. I even did an interview with him myself. I actually went to a town hall meeting that he had, and I asked him about guns in the inner cities and what was his proposal, since he was talking about basically his gun control or his position on guns. And I asked him, well, what will you do to restore black people's rights to make sure that they're able to carry a weapon, carry a gun.
Legally.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I asked him about AK-47s. I think that was what he was originally talking about, was nobody needed to have an AK-47. Well, why would you dictate gun law at all? Especially seeing as if, again, a black man can have a handgun or even a collapsible baton in the state of California, which is a felony, and you could be arrested for it, for a weapons violation. Or, if worse, it could lead to your death, We definitely want to reduce the amount of threat that is being seen by people with guns, especially legal gun owners. And his answer was pretty much just to dance around the question, as all politicians do, instead of speaking about it directly. But he lost here in Fresno for mayor. All the money that was funded into, funneled into his campaign pretty much went away. And now we have a Republican mayor here in Fresno, someone who was the police chief and had a record that was awful,
we'll do another show. That's a whole other
a whole other show.
We're both Fresnos.
But even
that's a whole other
still, he
show.
didn't get a chance to unseat him, and you would think that would be easy for him to do with him being the prosecutor. So, with them both being representatives of law enforcement, he lost.
I just see a lot of parallels, like you said. The red hat Republicans, who were African American, got all this money, all this fame, and it didn't play out for them.
Exactly.
And then you flip it on the other one. Here's Jance, right? Let's go to the other side. Here's Jance. I'm going to say everything people in New York City and San Francisco want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that don't work here. People want to hear what you're actually talking about. So all this money and fame didn't do anything. And then we go to Biden, a lot of money, and Kamala was supposed to bring the fame, and it was hilarious to see the MSNBC reporters, they had a mask on, but you could literally see their eyes go.
Right.
Their eyes went from here to like smoke coming out of their ears. Yeah. They were going, well, you're an African American young woman. You're of course supporting Kamala, and they're like,
yeah, it's the pandering.
I got to think for they basically said, why can't I think for myself?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, again, they take for granted, is they think that if they pander to one group in particular, or one special interest group, or whatever the case may be, that they'll be wholeheartedly behind supporting them. And that's not true. No group across the board is monolithic in their being. We're all individuals. We're all independent thinkers. And, Biden's campaign ended up experiencing that, trying to pander to the black community and the Hispanic community. some song in front of the audience, which was Hispanic. And I guess he thought that was going to win him over the Hispanic vote. And Andrew Jans, of all people, he was, I believe he's half Asian. Yeah. And he had pandered to the API community here in Fresno, which is one of the largest in the entire nation. We have one of the largest Hmong populations, which is great. In Fresno. Absolutely. Awesome. Yeah. But love it. He thought that he was secure in getting their vote, and he didn't.
Turns out they viewed themselves as citizens who have the right to think for themselves and make a decision based upon their own values.
Yes. And believe it or not, I spoke with a lot of them, and they were gun owners. And we're supportive of gun rights. And
oh, that's just crazy. People think they have the right to research and make up their own opinions, and that they expect the people they're going to vote for to say what it is you're going to do, and that I have the right to make a decision based upon that, even if I'm not Caucasian. What a radical concept. What a radical concept. Maybe someday.
Yeah, and then they're reliant upon the political pundits and the, I guess, people that go out there and do the polling to provide them with that information. Well, when you do a poll, unless you're polling every single person, you're only providing results for percentage, which doesn't reflect the majority. So all of these polls that came out and said Biden would win, in a landslide. Way wrong again. Exactly. So we need to start focusing on, I would say we the people need to start focusing on where these politicians and where the government is dropping the ball. And on the flip side of that, I as a candidate, that's where I feel like I have the advantage, because I'm not taking what they have to say for granted. I am still a working class member of society, and somebody that wants to better my community and see the betterment of my entire city, if not state, if possible. So with me having that connection with the actual people themselves, I think that's what, again, is going to advance me as the people's choice for governor.
Let's get, okay, that's a good review of everything. I really appreciate your time on this. Now, I've saved the most controversial question for last. And we can cover anything else you want to after, but I wanted people to get to know you, get to see that you are a real political animal who understands the calculus that it takes to play this game.
Indeed.
And I feel that you all have seen that. I've seen it. So let me ask you the tough question. You did an interview with a man called Sam Chaney talking about reforming AB 392.
Correct. That
interview was taken down.
Yeah.
Then you did an interview with a man, Stavante Clark, and that was taken down. And then you did a second interview, I believe, with Stavante Clark, and that was taken down.
Yeah.
Now, all three of these interviews were taken down, and all three of them had to do with AB 392. Could you tell us what AB 392 reform is that you're talking about, and without going down the rabbit hole and giving ammo to your critics as saying, you're a conspiracy theorist,